Yeah, that's more than 10K in 10 days.
The only time it's a problem is when you now have a non-performing buyer. It's good side hustle money, like anywhere from like 60 to 100 grand.
We need more women on these big stages to be someone for someone else to look up to, since mainly who we look up to are a lot of men.
Okay, and you're ready to move forward to that today.
A lot of people, in my opinion, should not be wholesaling.
And this goes back to just being a quality fucking person, doing quality business, guys. Just be a good person.
Exactly.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Deal Room. My name is Mat Walton, here with my co-host Eva. How you doing, Eva? It's Wednesday. This is our second recording this week, which is great. Has anything changed since yesterday? Just having a good day?
No.
No, not having a good day or nothing's changed?
No, we're having a good day. Nothing has
Okay.
changed, though.
All right, awesome. Yeah, if you guys haven't noticed on Eva's thing too, on TikTok, if you don't follow her on that, please do. She ran a 10-day challenge. It's over now?
Yeah, it's been over a couple days now, yeah.
Right, 10-day challenge. It was 10 deals or 10K in 10 days?
The goal was to do 10K in 10 days. The original goal was to make 100 offers, to get, all that out there. They were solid offers to agents, and then to get a deal out of that and to make 10K. We did end up doing over 300 offers, and we did end up getting 11 contracts. And in that 10 days, we got about 3 of them closed, and then we had a couple trickle through after.
That's awesome. How much did you make on that, by the way?
About 18.
Yeah, that's more than 10K in 10 days.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Guys, I'm excited. We have a guest today, someone who is going to talk more about being a woman in real estate, because I don't have any experience on that, but I will talk about it and how we need to champion more women in real estate. Not only does she do creative finance deals, works with wholesaling teams, a bunch of different things within the real estate space right now. Ingrid, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So go and give us a little background on what you are currently doing right now in the real estate. Like you said, working 2 wholesaling teams. I want to know how you do that, one. But I also just want to know all the stuff you have going on. It seems like you have a lot.
Yes, I have a lot. But so my name is Ingryd Hernandez. I'm an immigrant here from Colombia, adding to the economy.
Yeah.
So I speak Spanish. I work with 2 wholesaling teams. That wasn't intentional at first. But one of my superpowers is delegation. And seeing talent and seeing how I can work with that talent to maximize them. It's not going to be that way forever. It's that way right now. And it's really the way that my year has evolved versus my original intentions. And we could talk through that as well. And then I'm also a co-founder of creativelisting.com. Because as you work with these deals, especially when they're creative, one of the frustrating things is that none of the platforms out there are built to be able to post your creative deals and kind of market those attributes that make it unique. Rather, they're all over the place. So one of the problems this solves is to have a central location for these creative deals and be able to market the points about them that make them unique. So I have a data background. I used to be director of data management strategy for for the number 1 food distributor on the west side of the country. And then for almost 16 years, I also worked in data management for another big food distributor. And so I have a lot of corporate background, a lot of leadership development, and I feel like I'm being able to carry that forward into being able to work with different teams in the real estate space.
It sounds like you like numbers.
I do like math.
Yeah.
The math got to math. If it doesn't math, then no.
Oh, you're speaking my language. The math.
Right.
Yeah.
Math out of math.
Yeah.
So you bring a lot of that probably into obviously your real estate investing, because a lot of people don't. I think one of the big issues I see people make is that they get too emotional about things, especially within buying deals, which can really hurt you. They're like, oh, I really love this house, or I love where it's at, or whatever. And if the numbers don't make sense, they still try and force it. So I'm sure that you do that background of you with your numbers and math help you out as far as hey, I'm going to analyze this as a numbers perspective. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'm out.
Right.
That's simple.
Well,
right?
yeah, and learning creative, what's become unique. So to give you some perspective, so the wholesaling teams I'm working with right now in Arizona, that team, I've created that team and I'm working right now on putting the systems together so that the team is working largely without me. But I can just coach them through the questions that they have.
Right.
In Arizona, a lot of cash deals are just not happening at the level that we're used to seeing them. But what we are seeing, and arguably in any environment, I think getting deals under contract is super easy. What's hard is being able to sell them. So what we're finding in Arizona is we are finding still some great creative nuggets, but like they're not working for investors. They're primarily working for folks who are 1099 buyers, meaning they're business owners and they can't show a lot of income on their taxes. So they don't qualify for traditional lending, or I-10 buyers who have recently lost their ability to leverage FHA loans. So they have less products available to them to buy properties. And they're accustomed to having to spend like a lot more on their down payment. And so as a result of that, like they're also another client or avatar that you can help with these creative deals here in Arizona. So the wholesaling team that we work with primarily focuses on those two avatars, 1099 buyers or I-10 buyers. And so we're creating a whole marketing campaign around that. Every month we're going to have a buyer's workshop so that in both in Spanish and in English, because we serve a lot of Latino buyers here in Arizona. And then my other wholesaling team that I'm helping support and coach is out of Ohio and West Virginia. And so I really see myself as a coach right now on the wholesaling teams. Not that I'm actually, as active on either team. It's more of helping them get to the next step on the transactions so that they can lock up deals and everybody feels like they've earned their paychecks, if you will. So
Awesome. I want to talk about it, which I think can be a little bit of controversial in some places. We just spoke to another guest, Ryan Zolan, who has kind of an opposite approach of what you
I
did.
love Ryan. Ryan and I are on the same brokerage. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, real.
Oh, nice.
But he has a different view on creative than you do. It sounds
Of
like
course. Yeah.
hates creative. Now, as far as seller finance, great, but anything else, he views it as, borderline. Like it just whether it should be happening or not. My view on that is a little bit of I won't wholesale them because I think that you are putting a lot of trust in somebody else that maybe you don't know, and that they have somebody else's life in their hand. And it hasn't worked out for us one time, and that's the last time I'll ever do it again. I felt really bad for what happened to this lady. And so again, I'll never do that. So you're creating creativelistings.com, and is it basically a platform for people to wholesale?
Okay, so you asked two different things or mentioned two different things. So
Yeah.
let me tease out what you just said. So one is creative is bad, don't wholesale. And the other is did you build a platform to be able to do that bad thing?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for
The
getting that
first part of that, that's okay, I got you. The first part of that is I don't believe Ryan is completely wrong. I have a lot of respect for Ryan. Ryan is one of my go-tos. And he's amazing. But he's also very singular, and I appreciate that about him because one of the problems we have in this investor activity is people do maybe too many things before they've gone deep enough in any one thing, right? Yeah. So cash is Ryan's expertise, and I think is amazing. He does that, and I love how he systematized so much of what he does. And I'm with him that majority of deals are done on MLS, no matter what your guru tells you, for sure. And a lot of them are cash deals because, people, that's why the persistency and the fortune is in the follow-up, because eventually sellers get fatigued of being on the market for so long that they do give up, if you will, and realize that what they really wanted for their property is not good, right? Like it's not good enough for the actual value of it. As far as wholesaling creatively, I do think that there is a level of responsibility that has to happen. And you can't do this in every state. So for example, in Texas, you really can't do it the way that I do it here in Arizona. We do a couple of things that are different here in Arizona. We still income verify the buyers. And I think that that's important to complete. So they should be able to show you that they have enough funds to be able to support buying that property. Right. So if you're wholesaling and not doing that as part of your process, then you're already starting on the wrong foot. Because anybody can give you the,
initial down payment and first couple payments, and then.
Well, not just that, but anybody can sales you. Like they'll sales master you as to why they're so great. Right. One thing that I do that's more unique here is that we can do in Arizona to protect the seller is that we can sell on agreement for sale, which is an executory contract. And you can't do that, for example, in the state of Texas. So by default, Texas doesn't have the right protections, in my opinion, to wholesale creative deals. You have to do it through a sub-2 process. Now, a sub-2, excuse me, because even agreement for sale is sub-2, but you can't do the deed transfer. Like you don't have to do the deed transfer here in Arizona, and you have to in Texas.
Okay.
So that's already a critical difference on the wholesaling part. And then the other is I actually write language into the deal that says if that buyer defaults, that then my company can take back the property
Okay.
so that we can stay in the transaction and I can take over the property and literally go and do it again.
Right.
So I definitely took a more investor approach, even though I was wholesaling, and included myself into the process should the buyer default. So if you can't do those two things in the state that you're doing, and if you're not going to take responsibility for somebody potentially defaulting on a creative deal, then you shouldn't be wholesaling.
Yeah, I think it goes down to basically everything is if you have a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And obviously, if
Yeah.
you're doing things the right way, it's great. Yeah, so what you're talking about is it sort of the same thing as like contract for deed, things like that? They have a bunch of different options for it and names for it for the most part.
Yes, the United States of America has made it confusing. They're all executory contracts.
Okay.
An executory contract is a way to take control without having your name on the deed. So you can control the property without actually having that deed show up your name, right? So contract for deed, agreement for sale, land contract, those are all executory contracts where you can convey title ownership without actually exchanging out the deed. Very much like how you buy and finance a car.
And so most of the people that are buying on creativelistings.com is going to be like end buyers who want to live in the property, more than likely. Or is
No,
it kind of everything?
actually, a good chunk of creative listing is still investors.
Okay.
It's just a centralized platform where, my background is data and data governance. There's a
Yep.
word called schema.
Yep.
Schema just means what's the design of that data. And so when you go to Zillow or go through any traditional MLS, the only creative opportunity, you might have lease options, and you'll have seller carry. Seller carry generally means that the property is completely paid off
Right.
and they're willing to carry. Now you can also play with those attributes, the data fields to make it look more creative, but it's not that apparent when you're searching for properties that you're trying to buy that way. In creative listing, it's way easier to find them that way. It's because we want to market front and center that something is sub-2, that something is a mortgage method, that something is a lease option. And because we've put the data points that are very specific to those things, it's easier to find the properties you're looking for whatever your buy box is. That could be you're an investor, or that could be you're looking for a primary home. Both are served in that platform.
So you mentioned that you're having a little bit of difficulty in Texas doing it your specific way, but with your platform, will you guys be nationwide?
Yes, the platform is nationwide. I'm saying Texas doesn't allow certain types of executory contracts. So you have to understand if you're going to wholesale, how are you protecting the sellers and how are you doing it the right way? I imagine those who are wholesaling in Texas are probably just doing a deed transfer sub-2, which is fine. But the wrong way is not giving a deed of trust or a promissory note to the seller. We call those naked sub-2s, and in my opinion, they should be illegal. That's when you're not giving enough protections to the seller, so that the only way they can come back after you is that they have to sue you, because legally they don't have any other option. And in my opinion, we actually had Scott Horn here in my office yesterday talking about that, where it's like, it's in your best interest to give a deed of trust, a promissory note, or a mortgage to the seller if you're going to, no matter what, whether it's through an agreement for sale or through a deed transfer sub-2, because that's way more easier to deal with if you're in default. So let's say I become in default. I would much rather have somebody foreclose on me than to have to sue me, because suing is way more expensive. So you want the due process that's already in the law books on how you mitigate that. And then also coaching your buyers that a deed in lieu of foreclosure is always an option. You don't need a performance deed or get super complicated about that, meaning your buyer should know, hey, in order for everybody to kind of walk away happy-ish, you could also just give it all up and give that deed back to the seller so that you can avoid making this an even more terrible situation.
Yeah, yeah. We just bought a sub two, and we have it rented out over there. Same thing. They did a kind of a pocket deed. They had that within the lawyer wrote one up with a performance clause in it for X amount of days after, which I'm fine with. When I buy that myself, I'm like, all right, cool. I understand that completely. Because one of the issues with is that the investor that we had wholesaled to was a big person around here, and had a bunch of properties. So we thought he's good to go. He's trustworthy, but he ended up committing a ton of fraud, getting in a ton of trouble for that, and then stopped paying this lady's stuff. And so we reached out over and over again, like, please, like, just transfer back to the lady, transfer back to us, do anything to help this lady out. And he was like, can't talk about it, and just let it go. And I don't know what happened necessarily after that. But after that moment, I was like, all right, well, I have to be super careful because that's someone's life. And so, I kind of go back and forth about it. I don't just wholesaling to anybody. I just feel like you got to be really protective about yourself and what you're doing, especially with the sellers. And I want to make sure that when the sub two, that you're really letting and educating the seller about what's happening, what are the risks, obviously the benefits are great, but here's all the things that can go wrong. And here's what you do when things go wrong. And I think that, if you don't do that, I think that you're a part of a problem. The title company that we work with, the attorneys themselves, which some people don't like, we don't mind, but they actually sit down with the seller and they go over all of it with them at closing. Like, here's all the things that can happen. Like, are you agree with this? You're okay with this? Are you good with this? And then they move forward. Yeah, I think that's important to have, especially with that going on, because Ryan talked about it too. He's like, creative finance legislation is coming in the next year or so, it seems like.
Well, I know here in the state of Arizona, there was some nefarious investors who didn't know how to do sub two the right way. And it goes back to those naked sub twos that we were talking about earlier, that they didn't put any protections in for the seller. So they didn't do a deed of trust or a promissory note. What they did is strictly a mortgage takeover, which I'm with Ryan. That should be illegal. You should not be able to just convey the title and deed without having those protections in place with the seller. I think that's irresponsible.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah,
I'm glad you feel that way too. I agree with that. It's just a lot of things that people do bad things, people do good things. It just really.
Well, I'll tell you something. I didn't know I did my first sub two the wrong way, and I worked with a lawyer who was supposedly experienced on creative. And I was just talking to my team about that. I go, I didn't know, and now I did right by keeping up with my payments, making sure that I did what I said I was going to do. Because you only have a problem when there's a problem. So, like, for me, my obligation was to make sure the mortgage was paid every month and that I was giving my seller the payment that they were deserving based on our contract. And I was doing those things, so I was performing. The only time it's a problem is when you now have a non-performing buyer. I will tell you this, though. Although I have a bleeding heart for all the things, right? Even the Banks of America of the world, the Wells Fargos of the world, the huge mortgages, they also have a huge default rate. So we are dealing with humans who make mistakes. Now, fraud is completely different. So where you went, that sucks. But life happens to a lot of people, even those buyers who are buying creatively. One of the things that I really respect about Scott Horn, the lawyer out of Texas who does a lot of creative deals, is that really what we're dealing with is financing, right? It's a financing product. And if you ever want that, like, forever money, that wealth building money, in my opinion, when you're dealing with creative, wraps and being able to sell wraps is really the highlight of those processes. So wholesaling should just be a means to an end. But if you really want that wealth building investment vehicle, you really should be looking at how do you hold these notes, right? And be able to leverage them long term, because that's when the forever money actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we were just talking about that too. That's kind of what we did in our process. Eva's too, in the same way as thought process was, let's build a cash flowing business, which is wholesaling. And so we built that. Now it brings in cash consistently for us over and over again. And then we can just be picky and choose what we want because we have deals constantly coming in, which I think is probably one of the hardest parts about investors in general is finding good deals. And we've built that process to where we know how to find good deals. We know how we have them coming in consistently. Now we just pick off the ones we run, right, Eva? Kind of what
Yeah.
you're doing. Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that it's really important for people to notice that wholesaling is a means to an end. Like you're not supposed to wholesale forever. Sure, it's an entry strategy, but I don't think I know any guru who actually just sticks to wholesale only long term. I mean, even Jamil, it started wholesaling. He still has it as a back end cash flowing thing, but he's over there doing co-living and other things. Like he didn't just stick to wholesaling. And I think a lot of people get into wholesaling thinking that they're only going to stay with wholesaling, and that's usually not it, and it doesn't build that long-term wealth.
Yeah, at some point you're going to have to put your big girl, big pants on and actually own some assets and put some risk out there. Yeah, absolutely. There are some folks who stick to wholesaling, but what they end up doing is then make money through the education of wholesaling, right? So even Jamil, what he did is he franchised his wholesaling ability because he could put the systems and processes in. And so his franchise was one of the fastest growing franchises in the United States when he started it. I believe he even got awards for how fast their franchise grew across the nation. And so if you wanted to get into wholesaling, it was like a not done for you, but done with you model where you could buy into the franchise and you don't have to go through that pain of figuring out your CRM, your processes, your procedures. It was all prepped for you, and you could buy into that and kind of relieve that pain. But I mean, he still has Keegley. He still has wholesaling systems that work for him, but now he's treating it from a business standpoint. But trust you me, Jamil still does a lot of wholesaling.
Oh yeah.
No, yeah, I know. He's still I think
That's
he's still
one of
Yeah.
his business. Yeah, that's one of his
Yeah,
business.
and then Brent Daniels. Brent
Yeah.
Daniels does not necessarily buy a whole lot of assets, but he does still focus a lot on wholesaling.
So
How
does
did you
Brett,
get?
Brett doesn't buy a lot of assets at all?
Mm-mm.
No, he was kind of. He sound like when I
He
talked to him a long time ago, he was kind of against it. He was kind of like against it for the
Wow.
most part. He was like, "Why would you do that when you just wholesale?" I wouldn't say like against it, but he was like, to me, it sounded like he was like, "No, I just wholesale everything. Like, why would I take on all this stuff when I can just get rid of it?"
Well, I think a good portion of the reason, and again, we're speaking for people, we don't know their ins and
We don't
outs,
know
but what
everything.
I have observed with Brent Daniels is that, first of all, he's an amazing wholesaler.
Yeah.
And if you realize, if you're really into math, and actually I was just talking to the team out of Ohio and West Virginia, what's really beautiful about wholesaling is that anybody can do it. And because anybody can do it, that means nobody is special, right? And that's actually a good thing. When you're not special at a process, it means it's just a math game. How much volume and how many calls and how many conversations, how many processes should you have? And so if your goal is to have, 10 contracts a month, which is our company's goal, if that's the case, what math will get us there? And who are those? Now, the uniqueness of people is who's going to stick to it and who's going to be persistent
There you go.
and is within their personality to just dial those calls and get on the phone. That is what is going to differentiate you from those who get contracts and those who don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. And so I was like, guys, it's a good thing that nobody is special in wholesaling. That is just a math game. So how bad do you want that math? Because that's what makes you special.
Right. How did you get into wholesaling from data management?
Well, here's the funny part. I've had my real estate license since 2013.
Okay.
And again, I've had like higher level positions in the corporate space. But then we started laying off people through COVID. And I was like, look, man, one thing that's really good about me is I hire people who are smarter and more talented than me. And if I'm having to lay them off, it's just a matter of time when I'm going to be laid off, right? Especially in a leadership role where you tend to make more money. And so it's easier to make the P&L look better just by, laying me off. So once I had that scare in me, I was like, okay, I need to do something different and at least, have a side hustle of some sort so that I can provide for my family should something like that happen. And so my husband and I started looking into real estate and like, what does that look like? We had flipped our live-in house, basically. We rented it out for 2 years. We knew the capital gains, like, hey, if we've lived at least 2 years out of the last 5 years, if, being married, any capital gains we wouldn't have to pay because of the level we were at, right? Like we weren't going to make over 500,000. And once I learned that, I was like, there's got to be more about this. By the way, again, I have a real estate license. I didn't know shit about real estate. Sorry, I don't know if you can cuss on
No,
that.
you're good. You're good.
You can. I'm terrible.
Okay, good. So, one of the things I say a lot is that when you're just an agent, yes, those services are needed, but you're the waiter or waitress of real estate.
Right.
You are not actually the restaurant owner, right? You got to go buy real estate to be in the restaurant business. Otherwise, you're just a service provider.
Right.
So, having been an agent for, at that time, 7 years holding my license, and I was making pretty good money. I think it's good side hustle money, like anywhere from like 60 to 100 grand side money as an agent, right?
Good. Yeah.
And then I gave that business to my husband because he moved from working at a warehouse to now like, hey, I want more time with the family. So he got his license, and so I gave him my pipeline of business. But even then, having done that much work for that many years, I had never ran into a wholesaler. Never. And so I thought it was so interesting because we decided that we needed a mentorship. We needed to learn, like, accelerate our learning by actually joining folks who were doing this. And we found Pace through YouTube. Like at first I learned from Brandon Turner and Bigger Pockets, and then I was like, okay, I need more tactical. So I went to YouTube University. I actually found Jerry Norton, and Jerry Norton's YouTube led me to Pace. So it's so wild to think that happened in 2020, and I've met all of them. Since then, I've met all of them, and I was like, that's just so crazy to me. But and in 2021, January 2021, I joined Sub 2, and I was like, I thought I was just going to learn creative finance. No, I was wrong. I learned how to wholesale. I learned all the things, which is crazy, like how to flip, how to do all the things. And so at the time, having VAs cold calling was still relatively working. And so we got VAs calling for us, and I was terrible at staying persistent on the phone. And then finally, I was like, okay, I'm spending like $2,500 a month. I need to get on this phone. And so once I told myself that, and I was like, okay, from 4:30 to 7 or something like that, I'm going to be on the phone. And on the fourth day that I decided to be consistent, I locked up my first contract. That eventually turned into $54,000 profit of a virtual flip in Vegas.
Nice.
But yeah, like 54 on my first one. Then I wholesaled my second one, which we made $26K. And then the third one was the Sub 2. The fourth one was $1,200. I shouldn't have even been in that deal. It was like, but it was fun to do it with other people. In case I've never been to Kansas City. It was a Kansas City deal. And then on my fifth deal, I made $100K wholesaling. So I was like, wow, like this is crazy. And this is when it was way easier to get these types of numbers.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That 2021 area, yeah.
21, 20, and then early 22,
Yeah, I mean, so that's crazy. I mean, you literally in what, less than a few months made what you made on your side hustle for more
Yeah.
than what you made on the side
Oh,
hustle for an entire year?
more than
Yeah.
my side hustle, and pretty close to what I was making in my yearly salary as a corporate worker. I actually didn't leave my W-2 until last year, March, so 2024.
Wow, yeah, you're different from me because as soon as I got my first contract, I quit my job.
Oh,
The
yeah.
minute I got my first contract, I was out.
Well, I was the primary breadwinner,
Yeah.
and
I was you.
I listened to Pace when he said your W-2 is your superpower. And so it was really hard. And again, one of my powers also is that I know how to delegate. So although I had a W-2, I had largely delegated many of the responsibilities. I was trying to fire myself in that role, but feeling good about it, right? Like knowing that the leaders I had in place really knew their jobs. And so I used that transition time to really coach them through that too, so that if I were to be gone, they never needed me anyway. Because at that point, they were ready to take on or really be responsible for their leaders or their teams. So,
Right. Yeah, I'm interested to know about this because one of the things that I'm doing consistently, I think Eva's doing it too, and the most part is we already have, but building out our team consistently to grow. And so I want to know more about how you do that and what's your process, what's your team look like, and the way you build it all out because, I want to see how it aligns with ours and what I can learn from that and, hopefully we can get some good advice.
So I would say I've learned the hard way. on like what the conveyor belt looks like.
Yeah.
I've joined forces with another guy named Eric Richards out of Ohio and West Virginia. And one of the things that I've been super impressed about is the program that he has coaching him through his wholesaling company. So if your goal is wholesaling, I would say hands down, the results driven program is killer. I think if your goal is to have a wholesaling team, understand the structure, the education, the pieces that like to help you pick the right people for those seats, results driven I think is what will help you accelerate that. So if you guys are kind of at a crossroads on what that looks like, I would highly recommend checking out what they have to offer.
Okay, that's Eric. What's his name?
So Eric Richards is my business partner, but he helped build his team using the results-driven team, who is ran by Tiffany and Josh High out of Ohio.
That's awesome.
And so I'm going through their onboarding and all the training of that, and I was like, wow, this is exactly what it needs to look like. It's so structured. It's here's the math, right? Like, hey, you're not special. All you need to do is like hit these points that you need to do consistently on every call. You're always going for the no because that's what helps you get to the right yes. And I just love how methodical it is. Like, if you have the right personality working for your team, they see it that way too. They see it as a math equation. Like, they see it hey, I have to be getting my dials, 70 calls a day. And then your job as a business owner is making sure that they have the right amount of leads to convert. That's literally a math equation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This many calls, this many leads, equals this many deals. Is it all direct to seller?
Yes, we are starting to explore direct to agent because that's where I've kind of been able to build my business out here in Arizona.
Yeah.
But direct to seller is really where you'll make a lot more.
Yeah, bigger fees. It's kind of, I guess, give or take. I think Eva feels the same way I do on it because we work with agents. That's what our
Yes,
business
there's a
model is.
pros and cons, right?
Yeah. You
You're
want to
going to
get beat
make
up by
more,
sellers?
but that seller is going to be a one-time scenario.
Yep.
But you might make less with an agent, but they'll keep coming back for more if they get the right customer service. So that's sort of the differentiator. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I get cussed out a little less with agents too. Just a little bit less.
Depends on the day. Depends on the day, and it depends on the agent. That's not always true.
Right, yeah.
Well, I'm a licensed agent, and so it makes it easier when I call them because I that totally equalizes us when I'm on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm Ingryd. I'm with Real Broker, and right when I say that, they just pay attention to me a little bit differently.
Right.
But then I'm very upfront to say I'm calling because I buy properties in your area, blah blah blah, and then make sure that they know that I'm an investor.
Right. Yeah. Do you think everybody should have a license with wholesaling?
Yes, but I am biased to it. I think that at minimum there should be some sort of curriculum. There's a couple of things that I learned as an agent that is super helpful to understand the gravity of what you're doing when you're wholesaling. Right. So like I had to go through contract classes and understand what makes a valid contract and what doesn't make a valid contract. I had to go through ethics training to make sure, and actually that's how I scorched the earth with wholesalers. Oh, you were dealing with that wholesaler? Yeah, they don't even know like ethics. Like they never even had like I say things like that and I put doubt into sellers or agents when they're working with wholesalers because I'm licensed, And so and I think that when you're licensed, you understand the gravity of what you're involving yourself in a little bit more, in my opinion. Even though it's really easy to get a license, sure. Not everybody's a great test taker. I did get my license. I'm a great test taker. Like I got my license just on the first try, but I've had friends who had to do like 2 or 3 times before they got their license. So I just think having a minimum level of like, hey, at least pass this and know that you've had the minimum requirements, I think is it what does that call it? It lifts the ocean, whatever, like rises the tide for all the boats, or
Right.
I don't know why I do this to myself because I'm terrible at sayings like that, but
No, it's all right.
I always say I'm an immigrant. I'm sorry, I don't English.
We got it.
No, you're good. I agree with you though. I've always said that. I mean, I don't think you necessarily have to have your license. I don't have my license, but it does not cost a lot of money, and it does not take a lot for you to go and take an agent real estate course. You can go and take one today, and you don't have to go take the license. But at least you know the terminology. You understand contracts. Like there is some valuable stuff that they teach in real estate school. Do they really teach you the stuff like that's going to make you the big bucks? No, but they teach you all the basic information you need to know to be legal and ethical and just do business in a good way instead of a lot of the scary, crummy things that we see a lot of wholesalers doing out here.
Yeah, my wife
They
actually
don't
got
teach you how to be a good business owner.
yeah.
Yeah.
My wife actually got her license over here because in Virginia, you have to have a license to assign more than 2 deals a year or something like that. So she got it because we're owners of the business. So she got it and work under that license. When she went to the course, though, I'm looking at what she's learning. I'm like, this doesn't help you at all. It's just like, all right, Sheila, how many questions she had on like how many feet are in an acre, and like things like that. I'm like, you can Google that now. You know what I mean? Like, I understand back in the day you maybe need to know that because you couldn't go on the your phone and look at something, but you can look at those things. It was like the questions they're asking, but not once I said, all right, what they teach you about comping? Nothing. What they teach you about like actually going through? I mean, they taught you a little bit about the contracts for the most part, but it wasn't anything in depth. I said, what they teach you about, any type of like going to seller appointments or having these conversations or getting things under like they did not tell anything about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem because the stat of how I don't know how many agents don't do a deal a year, but it's a lot. It's a majority of them don't even close with a single deal a year. And I
Well,
just wonder,
we've had the worst real estate number of transactions just in general. So kudos for you guys if you've been able to overcome in the last 2 years. We've had the worst number of transactions in 50 years. So if you guys are doing real estate and you're still in it, kudos to all of you who are still in it because
Right.
most people are gone.
Right. Yeah, we see that a lot. We reach out. I talk to agents all day long. Eva does approach where she reaches out to people who have deals on the MLS. I reach out to everybody. So if you're an agent in my market, like there's 15,000 people over here in Hampton Roads, I've talked to you, or you blocked me, or whatever. Like we've talked. And so a lot of those texts are coming through of I don't do real estate anymore. I'm out of real estate. I'm out of the game. Things like that. I don't know. Like to me, I'm wondering if they're failing a lot of people because they have to rely on the broker to teach a lot of the things. And a lot of brokers
That's why whatever broker you choose, it needs to be something that aligns with your goals. So, I mean, I'm with Real Broker because they're amazing. They have tons and tons of education virtually. So one of my biggest hangups when I first started was that I had a W-2, and every time they had these amazing educational opportunities, it was when I was working. So every time there was a lunchtime education, I would try to go because it was literally like half a mile from where my building was. But one of the really cool things about Real Broker is that it's education is all virtual. And so if you want to focus on anything, including sales conversion, your sales method, how to become a better business owner, arguably, I feel like Real is one of the ones up there that can teach you how to do those things. And you are reliant on your broker. Now, I will say, if you understand what brokers' roles is, it actually makes sense that the broker is the one that's going to teach you that after you get your license. So I feel like getting your license is just the easy peasy piece of this. And it's not going to teach you how to do business because every brokerage has their own set of values and perspectives that will influence how you will become that next level salesperson because it's a sales job.
Yeah.
So your broker should be the one to help you figure out how to build your business. And that's why the next step is choosing the broker that most aligns with what you're trying to accomplish. I went to Real Broker because I could get a wholesaler's addendum to the ICA, which is the Independent Contractors Agreement, that says if I go and do business with them, here's how I have to operate to be within their within their what we call the errors and omissions insurance that they have.
Yeah.
If it's outside of that box, then I have to be very careful about how I do business. I always have to disclose I have my license. I always have to tell people I'm acting as a principal. I'm never a fiduciary on a creative deal. I'm always a principal, meaning I'm there to make money, and I'm very clear that I'm there to make money. I give sellers, here's their options. If you're going to do a creative deal, here I'm going to be a principal. If you want me to be like your listing agent, for example, and we go that route, I'm not going to cross the road again back to being an investor. And maybe now they decide, can we go back to that creative deal offer that you gave me? The answer is no, but what I can do is go reach into, my sub 2 friends that I have who know how to do creative responsibly, and then I'll just get a, commission-sized referral is what we call it, so that I'm not a fiduciary in that transaction.
Awesome. So speaking of this, and I know we talked a little bit beforehand. I know Eva wants to jump into this topic of women in investment group. I told you I'd be quiet during that, and I'm not. I think you do have responsibility. But me and my perspective is I have no problem with women. I have 7 people total on my team, and it's 2 guys, and all of them women. And then everybody I've hired before that has been a woman. So I know how hard that women work on it, how good they are. Especially we talk about this in sales too. That I believe fully that there's more guy salesmen in general. Maybe the average is great for guys, but when a woman is great at sales, they are heads above them by all means. Because of the empathy that they have and the way they can connect with people is a lot better than most men in general. And they can really dive into that and be really successful at sales when they pass that. So Eva, you want to lead into the question there?
Well, we're speaking more on the fact that real estate investing is more of a boys' club. Yeah. And I find it super inspiring that Ingryd's doing all the things that she's doing and building the community that she is, because women aren't very big in this industry, and we need more women on these big stages to be someone for someone else to look up to, since mainly who we look up to are a lot of men. Mm-hmm. And not that that's a bad thing, it's just that we don't see people like us standing on stages, and especially because Ingryd is an immigrant and she's Hispanic, that is triple the things that we don't see. Like normally we'd see a woman on stage, okay, but it's not typical that she's going to be an immigrant or Hispanic. So to have someone like that building the community that she is and being on stage, it's very inspirational, and it's a big deal for women, Hispanic women, and immigrants. And so I love that you're doing that, and I would love for you to speak a little bit more on it and tell me what you think kind of are some guidelines on what women should be doing differently in this industry that's going to help them grow and become those other inspirations for other women as well.
Yeah. Well, I would say align yourself with people who are actually doing deals. And very much those will likely be men. And this is why I don't necessarily subscribe to the only ever being part of women's group. And here's some perspective on that. I'm going to give a metaphor, I'm sure terribly, but if you have, let's say, victims of domestic violence, right, largely women, and then, the perpetrators, largely men, are the ones causing harm, and then you're like, but no, ladies, let's all get together and figure out how do we solve this problem. You're actually asking the victims how to solve the problem, which for me, logically, again, I love math, doesn't make any sense. The math ain't mathing. So the only way that we can see a more inclusive environment is to have people at the top, men, bring their hand down to say, hey, how do we help you rise to the occasion, give you the right training, and put you in a position of power alongside me in order for you to be able to inspire others. So I subscribe to how do we help men understand the scenarios that we find ourselves in and allow us an opportunity to be at the table. So for me is one reason why, I have incredible respect and love for my brother Pace Morby, because he very, very much does that. He does that across the aisle, not just women, but immigrants, people of color. That is why I actually joined Sub 2. If you were to look at my first text to Pace, was what inspired me in joining Sub 2 was just how inclusive it was. And the reality is you should look at your marketplace and say, how do we make sure that we have a diverse team so that if we are speaking to a seller who's having a hard time dealing with the guy who's an analyst and needs to only know the math, and have somebody on the team who can also speak to the emotion and maybe allow, one of the things that Scott Horn said last night was it's been amazing. So Scott Horn has a business partner. Her name is Susan. And Susan gets on calls with sellers who maybe have their guard up with Scott, because the minute they hear a woman's voice, they drop their guard down. Right. So not to say Susan is better than Scott or Scott is better than Susan, but the client you're serving sometimes needs to hear a different kind of voice. So you make your team stronger when it's diversified. And so again, I don't subscribe either to a man is better than a woman or a woman is better than a man. It's we are all in this together, and how do we team up to figure out how do we get more contracts, how do we get more deals? A different voice on the team will help you get there.
Absolutely.
Love that. Yeah. And so what would you say to the women who are starting out as agents? Like, so I know a lot of time when women want to get involved in real estate, or just anyone wants to get involved in real estate, they all end up going the agent route because that's typically what's most promoted. It's the easiest thing, like you said, to get into. And so then they want to get into that. But then, of course, when you get into real estate as an agent, if you actually get into it and get more involved, you start to see the other avenues. And so what would your advice be to women who are becoming agents and maybe wanting to step into more of the investment side?
Well, that's definitely the role that I was in. I actually would have gotten into investing a lot sooner. Back in 2015, I was trying to figure out, like, hey, what is this stuff? And I remember the guy who was teaching us, and I won't say his name because I don't think this was intentional, but he was speaking down to us with all of the investor talk because I think he wanted to be seen as like the astute one, the really intellect in it. And then I was intimidated by that, and I'm like, cap? Like, I don't get it. I didn't get what cap meant, right? Yeah. And now I'm in a position where we're looking at RV parks and mobile home parks. I'm like, let's get it, baby. What's NOI? What's the cap rate? Yeah. Like, that took time, though. It took, a good time to better understand that terminology. But I would say for women in this space, like, understand that the dumbest people I know make the most money. So if you understand that anyone can make money in this business, know that you can go to anyone, and you can go to anyone, honestly, and ask them how you can be involved with them. And I'll give you an example. Like, the reality is, I joined Sub 2, there was already over 1,000 people. Like, and now I think it's like Sub 2 has over 17,000 people, something like that. But nothing made me particularly special, per se, other than I wanted to create a relationship with the guy who was actually doing deals. And so how did I do that? I found things that he needed for his community to grow, and I helped fill in that void. What I didn't do was, hey, how can I add value to you? I know people are very well-intentioned in asking that question, but that question is overwhelming. Like, I don't like getting that question because it puts work on me. Rather, they should be observing, and I'm speaking not just to women, but anyone. Observe what those people who you want to create a relationship with need and fill that need, whatever that might be. And so for us in Sub 2, what I was seeing is, okay, they need somebody who can also be particularly well-versed in this creative world. And so I became a student of the game. I was like, okay, I'm going to, first of all, it's in my personality anyways. I like to read the manual before I go and, I remember getting a camera when I was a kid, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to read this manual first before I even touch the camera because I don't want to break it. I want to be the person who understands this camera. There was a DSLR, whatever, camera. And so then you have to also know yourself to say, okay, are you the kind of person that is going to dive right in, or are you the kind of person that's more like me, reserved, and want to kind of understand the expertise before you dive in? And so I did that. I learned all the things I possibly could, and then once I knew that enough to feel like I could coach, I started giving back by having meetings with people who I would see that on the Zoom calls, 20 people would raise their hand, and because Pace takes forever to answer a question because he's so methodical about it. Yeah. You'd have 18 people who didn't get their questions answered. So I would reach out to them and let them know hey, let me know what questions you might have, because I think I might be able to help you if your goal was to get it from Pace and Pace didn't have time. And so then people started coming to me to ask these questions, and then Pace eventually created, regional leaders. So I've been a regional leader for the last couple of years, so that people come to me with their questions, and this helps him because then they're getting the support they need without having to take Pace's time. So I didn't ask Pace, hey Pace, how could I do this for you? I just went and did it. So I think if if you can be observant enough to see the people who are around you who might need your help, or maybe they're having an event and you have an event space that they can use or a connection of some sort, like those are all ways you can help without having to be asked how to help.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was awesome. I got a lot of takeaways from that.
Yeah, and the main two things that you hit on a lot in this this call is discipline and taking initiative.
Yeah, because I see a lot of people. I see a lot of comments in like these Facebook groups that I'm in. They're like, "I need a mentor. Someone come mentor me." And I'm like, "That's not how you do it, really. Find somebody that's doing something and help align yourself. See what they're doing, and then how can I add value to this person, but not be that person that's like, what do I need to do for you? What can I do for you? That's like actually go and find out, like study, find what's happening, learn about it, and fill the gap, like you said, which is an awesome thing to do. I think that what you talked about with women and anybody starting in real estate in general is that it's better to align yourself with someone or partner with somebody who fits maybe the opposite of you. My wife is the opposite of me. Like you, Ingrid, she wants to learn everything before she jumps into stuff. I'm the type of person to pull that camera out and I break it before I get a chance to actually do it, because I just start messing with stuff until I figure it out, right? And so with her, she handles, and it's not a relationship where I just kind of dragged her along with my business. She takes care of all of the contracts, all of the TC work, all that stuff that I hate doing. She asked me yesterday, she was like, because I was talking about it, and you talk to the dumbest people in real estate make a lot of money, and she was like, "What is a disinterested party affidavit?" And I was like, "It's an affidavit that people sign when they're not interested." And she was like, "Not at all." She was like, "Not even close." And so like she brings me up with that is because she has that other side of me. So me partnering with my wife helped me be successful, because I would not know what to do when we put a contract for me. I don't know how many contracts I would have signed. I probably shouldn't have signed, just because I was like, sure, let's do it. So I think that when you're starting off, a lot of things is people think, all right, I have to do everything myself. When I first started in wholesaling, I joined a mentorship. I didn't know the difference between acquisitions and dispositions. I had no idea. I thought it was all just one whole thing, which was fine. It worked out for me because I found all my buyers and I did all my deals, and that's how I started off, and that's how I am doing now. But if you're just starting off and you're trying to learn all of that, not only do you have like 10 different strategies on acquisitions, you have to pick one, and then you can find somebody in dispositions who already knows the buyers and what they're at. You can just ask that person, hey, what are your buyers buying? What are they buying at? How do you run your numbers? And now you just cut out a learning curve that would, take you down really deep in order to find out how many deals you have to cancel before you can get your deal locked up. So what you said, I learned, obviously some big things that you heard is obviously like partner with somebody, take initiative, actually go and do the stuff, but then reach out and be proactive on it, because you actually help people out in the community. I think that's invaluable for a community leader, of someone who's starting something up. I'm glad you did that. Pace is, like you said, yes, his talks can go on for a long time, but he teaches so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. That guy has an amazing brain.
It's awesome. I mean, what's so next for you, Ingrid, is obviously creative listings. You're going to continue to scale that. It's not monetized right now, what you said. So if you guys are looking to get onto creative listings, jump onto it and get rolling. I'm interested to know how you plan on scaling your teams. If you're scaling that, what's the next plans for how you grow?
Yeah. So my major priorities right now, the first one being creativelisting.com. We actually have a webinar on Tuesday. We do one webinar a month to kind of talk about the new features that are getting rolled out, any bugs that were fixed, and kind of get people's feedback about their experience on the tool. In the long run, we shouldn't need these webinars, but since we're in creation mode and innovation mode, we are actively engaging with our audience so that we can get feedback that can be relevant to what we're building, because we want to make sure it provides value to the people who are using it. So for example, we recently released the chat function that allows like a buyer to reach out to you as the seller in the tool and have like a back and forth. Now we want the buyer in the driver's seat though, so they're the ones that have to instigate that chat in the future, because we know that sellers want to be able to control that chat. That'll probably be a way that we monetize, for example. If you guys go to affordablehousing.com, for example, like you have to pay for your listing and you have the ability to reach out to potential prospects that meet that criteria. So we're getting inspiration from a lot of different platforms that serve a level of a marketplace platform like creativelisting.com. So that one's probably the number one priority. And then the second to that is coaching and helping our wholesaling team out of Ohio and West Virginia. Myself and Eric have big goals out there to help more buyers become owners. So to give you a statistic, because I love math again, people who do lease option programs, investors, primarily do it for themselves. And I'm not suggesting that, people are evil or whatever, but if you're really in it to help people become owners, that means something is wrong and that needs to be addressed. So in the Midwest, doing wraps is still very lucrative. And so we saw an opportunity that we're buying these properties that need fixing up. So the BRRRR method, right? If you guys have heard of BRRRR method, so you buy, you renovate, you rent, you refinance, and then you repeat. We're doing that in Ohio and West Virginia. But what we're doing that adds to the BRRRR method is we're creating owners. So these renters, we're putting a lease option contract with them. And because we know how to do wraps, we're converting them within 3 to 5 years to become the owners of that property. Meaning, as long as they're paying their rent on time, we've already verified that they have enough income to be that renter anyway. So they're verified. And now they have the behaviors of being an owner because they've consistently paid rent. When we did the math, on average, their mortgage from their starting mortgage, which by the way, by the time they exit 3 to 5 years, it's actually more aligned because we do lease increases a year by 3%. So when we do the math and convert them into owners, on average, their monthly rent would change from their starting point to them becoming owners anywhere from $200 to $300 more. So for $200 to $300 more, we've now converted them into owners. And now they own the property. We hold the note because we become their bank, and then they don't have anything. So we've actually saved them money because now they don't have to pay to move. They don't have to come up with a new down payment. Like, we're literally going to convert them. So they're for people who are in Ohio and West Virginia and they're looking for these types of properties, we do list these not only on creativelisting.com, but we list them also on a website called getnesty.com, GETNESTY.com. Catchy, memorable. And so mine and Eric's goal is to knock out the statistic of 7% and less of people who do lease options as a buyer tenant actually convert into being an owner. We want to flip that. I'm like, what if 93% become owners because we've made it so frictionless for them to be those people, and honor the fact that they have been great paying tenants. So that's our goal out in Ohio and West Virginia.
That's awesome. 'Cause, I think a lot of people take lease options, like investors do lease options because they hope that they won't perform on it, and so they can just redo it over and over again. That's so you guys are flipping that obviously to make it actually work. I don't know who was talking about it, but they were talking about hey, even if they're late on one payment or whatever, like, nope, sorry, you can't really renew it, you're out, and then we're bringing somebody else back in. Just kind of just kicking people out on purpose because then you get a big down payment back over again, and you just repeat.
Yeah, we're actually allowing 2 lates as a part of our program because we want them to succeed.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good way to, that's an ethical way of doing things, because I think obviously the unethical way will get you more in trouble, and then more legislation, and then more problems, and then bigger from there. Absolutely. Awesome. So it's about an hour here. We're gonna wrap things up. So there's ways to get into hold of you. Obviously, Creative Listings if you're looking for properties that you can buy. You have your social medias. Is there other way that people can reach out to you for working with wholesaling or anything like that?
Yeah. So you can reach out to me on Instagram. It's Ingryd with a Y, INGRYD_Hernandez. I answer all my DMs. And then another way is to go to IngrydHernandez.com. That's where my buy box is and where you can submit opportunities if you want a JV with us.
All right. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time on this, Ingryd. I know that you're busy, and you making time for us means a lot to us. If you guys got anything from this, like we did, because we definitely did get a lot from this, please like, share, subscribe, hit the comment, hit the bell icon. But I can't wait for people to see this episode. I think you gave a lot of value on that.
Thank you so much. It was an honor. I really appreciate you guys even having me on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ingryd.
Thank you for coming.
All right.